at a brand new episode of Sales Talk, the sales TV show where we talk all things sales. I'm joined today by one of my best sales friends. He is an expert sales coach and trainer and author of 2 best-selling books, Everybody Works in Sales, and the newly published The Easy Guide to Sales for Business Owners. It is Niraj Kapur. Niraj!
That's a fantastic introduction. How are you, Steve? All right?
I'm doing well. I must say, I'm doing well because I'm quite excited to be talking with you. I really am, because I follow your content, I've read your books, and I know that what you're going to share in this episode is going to be so valuable to the viewers. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. It's nice to see you face to face. We talk so much on text. We talk over the phone. We met each other on LinkedIn sometimes, but we don't actually do this not often enough. So yes, and we plan to meet up, of course, in March in London, but that was cancelled because of the COVID-19. So it's nice to actually talk to you here.
But please, first off, just a brief introduction about yourself and give people the background about why you're here today and why, when you talk about sales, people should listen.
Okay, well, I started off in sales because I had no degrees and no qualifications. And back in the early 90s, the only job you get really with no degrees and no qualifications was sales. I mean, that's how bad it was. And I was very lucky because I started off in a publishing company in the 90s in Soho, back when magazine publishing was really very exciting. And they trained me up. It was very basic training, DIPIDA, IATA, always be closing, all the basics from 25 years ago, which worked well back then. And back in those days, you'd meet a client, ask a few questions, quite often do business on the first phone call. You'd often have lunch with a client for 3 hours, shake their hands, and that was how business was done. So I had a bit of a lucky introduction to the industry. And then the recession hit really hard, and I went to work for The Guardian for 6 years, and that was amazing, running their conferences and exhibitions. And at my first job, my second job, I was always, this is average, I was slightly above average. Not because I was brilliant, but just because I worked harder, I picked up the phone, and I tried to help people. That was it. Those were the only 3 skills I had. I had no other skill sets really, but I picked up the phone, I worked harder, and gave as much value as possible. And then in 2010, my wife at the time said, look, you can't be a salesman your whole life. You've got to be a manager. You're really good at coaching people. And luckily, Informa, which is a FTSE 100 company, had a management program. So they hired me as a sales manager. I went onto that program and went from junior sales manager to global sales manager in 18 months. And that way I got to travel the world for 5 years. And it's fascinating doing business in South Korea, which is so different to the Middle East, which is so different to America, which is so different to England, you know. And I got a chance to understand people. And those 5 years were the best 5 years of my life in terms of success, but also because I invested in coaching. I invested in going to events. I started reading books on sales. I understood personal development. And all of a sudden, my career took off. But more importantly, I helped other people with their careers taking off. I coach people to success. And that's really where I found my sweet spot. When Everybody Works in Sales came out, I'd always wanted to run my own coaching business, but I didn't quite have the courage, because when you work in London on a big salary, you don't want to leave, Steve. You're happy where you are. Yeah. And I always wanted to run my own business, and Everybody Works in Sales was in the top 100 in Amazon for 21 weeks. And that gave me the confidence just to go out there and use the royalties to set my own business up. And I spent every day trying to raise the standards of sales in companies and trying to help people hit their sales targets.
Wonderful. I mean, it sounds so exciting. I mean, the brands that you talk about, really, really powerful brands. So, succeeding in that environment must have been challenging, because I'm sure it was like super and uber competitive. So, focusing on coaching and personal development and developing others, is such a wonderful attribute in a sales leader. And I know from personal experience, because you helped me when I was launching my book, Funnel Vision. So it's an absolutely genuine desire to help people be as effective and as good as they can be. So wonderful attributes, and coaching, I recognize that you're good at that. So thank you again for being here.
No problem.
We're talking, we're working through the Sales Mindset Coach syllabus, and we're currently in the Sales in Your Business Strategy module, and going after a really important topic. And that topic is about the relationship between sales and marketing. And clearly, with the brands that you've worked for and the experience that you have working with companies, you've seen big budgets, you've seen modest budgets, and you've potentially seen them not always work together in the most effective way. So I'm really interested just to open up this topic of maximizing your sales and marketing activities. But what are the biggest mistakes that you have seen and often see when it comes to companies making the most of sales and marketing?
Yeah, fantastic question. There's a lot to cover, so I'll be as succinct as I can. I certainly see with a lot of marketing taking place is very feature driven, and it's not very driven by value or benefits. And so many marketing emails after a while, they just look like they're all written by the same person. It's just feature, 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 maybe a benefit, and they're always far too long. And writing good marketing and writing good sales marketing is very different. And just to be clear, unlike most salespeople, I generally love marketing people. You know, when I worked in magazine publishing, it was Marketing Week. That was the name of the title. So I love marketing people. I've spent 10 years of my life with marketing managers, marketing directors, marketing executives, and I love marketing people. So when I say that it's driven by features and not enough by value or benefits, it's not a criticism, it's just a fact. And that's a big problem we have. The other problem is that salespeople rely too much on marketing people to give them good leads all the time. And salespeople need to be a bit more proactive and generate more marketing leads themselves through mediums like LinkedIn, or even through what you're doing, like the sales funnel. That's so important. And that's a very good form of marketing. But again, most salespeople don't think like that. They just want marketing people to hand them leads all the time. And certainly in this day and age where marketing budgets are being cut to pieces, in some cases non-existent at the moment, because marketing staff are in furlough, I'm having salespeople contact me saying, what do I do? We have no marketing. Can you help? And that's where the problem occurs. So salespeople really need to understand marketing better, and marketing people need to learn to write better sales emails. I do think that both people will do better if they work together rather than work in their own individual silos.
I mean, that's an entirely interesting concept, isn't it? Because I mean, you're describing a space where the role of the salesperson is becoming more like the role of a traditional marketer, and the role of a marketer is becoming more aware, or it's much more important that they are part of the sales process
100%.
as well.
Absolutely.
Right? Yet we see a disconnect, even potentially in small businesses, right? That we feel that we should be talking about how wonderful our product or service is from a marketing perspective, but forgetting from a sales perspective what it actually does and what benefit it actually produces for the end user. So I find that a really interesting piece to just hover over about, you know, why do you think it's so important to get these two components of your business right? Why do you think it's so important that we can no longer operate a sales function and a marketing function without them being cognizant of each other and work together?
Well, whenever you do sales, so I'm quite lucky in my role. I have like two roles. I have one job, which is to run my business and make money and bring in sales. But then my other role is to help my clients generate money and teach them knowledge, which makes them sales, because a good sales trainer always has ROI for the people he works with. And they all have outcomes I have to meet. So I constantly have to be improving and measuring and seeing what works. Now, if I'm selling and trying to make money for my business, I'll go to my existing database, I'll pick up the phone, and I'll give them lots of value. And that's selling. I'll ask good questions, I'll recap, I'll follow up. I'll do all the good things you need to do in a sales process. But these people still have to be marketed to. So I have an assistant, Nicola, and every Thursday, she will send them my sales newsletter, which is really good marketing. We will discuss social media during the week. So I'll say, look, I want to discuss this. Just put it into, find me some nice images on Shutterstock. I don't want to use Canva because it's free. I want to use Shutterstock, which is expensive and paid for. It's a bit more classy and more reflective of my brand. So she'll research on there. And so she's constantly doing the marketing side of things for me, my assistant twice a week. I'm constantly doing the sales sides of things, but they both work together. I need to have a newsletter. I need to have funnels coming in. I need to be thinking of PDFs to send my customers. I need to be sending valuable information to them and marketing to them every single week. Not every day, that's too much. A lot of Americans do every day, which I find far too much. But every week, once a week, I make sure I'm marketing to my customers. And that's absolutely vital. So that's why sales and marketing work hand in hand. So I'm doing the sales, my virtual assistant is doing the marketing, and they kind of meet in the middle, and that's where you achieve success.
Yeah, I mean, and they all come out of the same plan, right? Because because I don't know if you see this, but I often see that we build a business plan, we build a marketing plan, but then we're not tying up the sales plan into the how do we deliver on this great idea. So your weekly meeting is a place where you also get the chance to review, assess, change direction. And for some businesses, I imagine that could be a conversation with yourself, right? If you don't have a Nicola to help you. But would you recommend that's something that people should be doing regularly, Niraj? That stepping back.
100%. So early March, I was working up until the 16th of March. I was still seeing clients face to face. So I would go into their offices, and I was surprised how many times the sales departments and the marketing departments never met. They met once a year if somebody's leaving do, in the pub, but they never got a chance to talk to each other, and they have to. That's so important, because unless you understand another department, how do you know what they're doing? And once you understand what somebody does, we're able to help each other more. And that's why it works on a big level. Now, if you're a small business of, say, 3 people or less, and you can't afford a marketing executive or marketing manager, that's understandable. I can't afford a full-time marketing manager. So what I do is I have an assistant who 2 days a week works with me, and a lot of her work is marketing. And what I said this to a small business guy I spoke to yesterday. He's about to become a father in 3 weeks' time, and he's genuinely worried about what he's going to do with his work. And I said to him, outsource as much as you possibly can, because the more you can outsource, I outsource as much as I can. I don't do my own invoicing. I don't send invoices to clients. I don't chase them up. Nicola does that for me, because all I want to do is help my clients get results, do an absolute ton of reading and learning, and go to charity events. That's kind of what I do. I do not want to be wasting time doing invoicing. It's like the housework. I don't do the garden. It's not because I'm rich and I can afford a gardener. I don't want to spend half a day a week or half a day a fortnight working in my garden when I can be reading books on sales and management. I don't want to spend 1 hour a week ironing when I can just give it to an ironing company. I can spend that 1 hour a week doing some charity work. So I outsource a massive amount of my life, which allows me to focus on what's really important to me. And that's where a lot of people in small businesses make a mistake. They try and do everything themselves, and then they get super stressed out. And, you know, when you run your own business, it ages you very quickly, as I'm sure you'll know. It really does. So outsource as much as you possibly can and just focus on doing the things you really love. And you'll be amazed. It took me about a year to understand this, but you'll be amazed at how much you achieve in that time, you know?
Yeah, I mean, outsourcing is definitely another episode that we cover in Sales Talk. But equally, I find this to be really important, that you're aware of your time and the value of your time, right? And I think that's a really important piece. You mentioned something, the words come through a lot already, and that's value, right? I value my time. I value other people's contributions. I provide value to my clients. What does that mean, value? Because I'm in a place where I'm seeing the pandemic change the marketing landscape. Let's just say people are much more overtly giving stuff away for free. And that might be part of their strategy. Yeah, might be, but it might be desperation. It might be. But I kind of see it not always being congruent with their business plan or their marketing. So with this pandemic that's on, this need to probably prospect more than we ever have done before, how do you build value but not destroy value by giving stuff away for free?
Perfect. Really simple. This is how you give value. You pick up the phone, you call people. It's really that simple. You know, the worst thing you can start doing is hammering out emails and try to sell people now by email, because most people are at home and they're staring at the screen all day. And the last thing they want is more emails. Nobody says to me, God, I wish I had more emails. Nobody, you know, people have too many emails in their inbox. And I always wait now. I certainly find, for me personally, between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock is the best time to speak to people, because I spent 5 or 6 hours having meetings on Zoom or Skype sessions or Microsoft Team meetings, and they're staring at the screen for 5 or 6 hours. I actually welcome a phone call. And I'm having better conversations now that I've ever had with my customers. And certain customers I have, you know, we all have this big prospect pipeline of clients who we want to do business with. And some of them are very close to doing business and others are a bit far behind. But what I found is the ones especially that are far behind, who are too busy for me to speak to, I'm speaking to more and more of them now, because I'm picking up the phone and they're welcoming a conversation. And it's not me saying, I want to talk about your sales. That's not appropriate. It's not me saying I want to talk about doing business together. What I'm saying is, look, everybody's going through a really tough time right now. How can I support you? And when you say that phrase to people, you do two things, Steve. You make them see you're a human being because you get them. Everybody's going through a hard time right now. And the second thing is you're supporting them. How can I help you right now? How can I support you? It's not an aggressive sales question. It's not a closing question. It's a massive value question. And a lot of the time, and most of the time, in fact, the clients I speak to open up. Every now and again, they go, well, we have no budget. I said, that's okay. I'm not here to ask about your budget. I'm here to ask about you. Forget about the fact I'm a sales trainer, okay? How are you coping at the moment? And how can I help you? And quite often, people will open up to you a bit more than usual and tell you about frustrations and concerns. I've had clients for 6 months who refuse to talk about their personal life, and all of a sudden I found out they have a dog and they have kids, and it's really nice. And so you get an extra 3 or 4 minutes with a customer now just by asking that simple question, and that can often lead then to a business discussion. Sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay, but sometimes it does. And it's just really important, because no matter what anybody says, people buy people they like and trust. Jeffrey Gitomer says it, Jeb Blunt, Anthony Iannarino, all the people we look up to and admire say it. I say it. Nobody hires me and goes, God, I hate Niraj, but he's really good at his job. Nobody. My customers love me, or in some cases, they just like me. But they all know that I act in their best interest, and they all 100% trust me to do right by them, and that's absolutely vital.
So that, again, that is a real tremendous insight, because your advice here about creating value isn't about content. It isn't about creating me more and more to read. It isn't about showing how different I am from an intellect perspective. The value that you're talking about creating is one about support, personality, vulnerability, sharing experiences, and creating an environment that people are, at this moment in time, more comfortable to communicate with. Now, that's not being calculating, because, you have a dog. Next time, how's Rover? but it is actually taking that conversation to a level of a genuine sincerity. And the value that you're creating is one on a much deeper and personal level than just another download with more content.
100%. And that's what I do. So I'll ask that question. I'll have a conversation. If in that conversation they'll tell me they have no budget or staff are on furlough, I'll say, I'm really sorry to hear that. Again, how are you coping with that? This is the first time you've had to put staff on furlough, because for a lot of sales directors, under a lot of pressure, and men particularly are awful at expressing emotion. We don't express emotion very well. So you have to actually ask, are you okay? And that conversation will last, say, between 3 and 5 minutes. And after that, I'll say, you know what, in terms of sales content, it's so important to keep learning. If I send you my newsletter link, because I can't sign you up for it for GDPR reasons, you'll learn so much by signing up to it. Or, I did a LinkedIn article that really went big last week. Can I just share it with you? Maybe share it with your team. I think it will really help them. How do you feel about that? And that's, so it's a very gentle, that is what I call good selling, because you're listening and you're giving value. And then I'll say, when's a good time for us to catch up? And again, I'll get them to tell me. If they say, I'll call you, that's never a good sign. In which case you got to say, look, I know how busy you are. How about I at least keep in touch with you once a week with valuable content until you're ready? Does that sound okay? So again, I'm giving valuable content. And there's a client I won in January. It took me 7 months to win them. And I always ask, why did you choose me? And he says, Niraj, everybody else was trying to sell to me, but every week you kept giving me valuable content, which I share with my team, and they found it terrific. And this valuable content was nothing more than the posts I do on LinkedIn. That was all. I took my best post of the week, shared it with him, and said, look, I've had 45, 50 comments, 90 likes. People are really resonating with this. Why don't you share it with your team? That's it. But I kept it consistently every single week. And rather than just doing a mass email, which I don't believe in, I'd make it personal. So again, I'd mention his dog Rover, or something he told me about his football team. And then I'd share the content. Because again, that shows you listen. And what's the one thing salespeople don't do? Listen. So again, it just makes you more of a human being. It shows you listen. You're giving value. Nowhere in my emails to say, last space available, book now, or else the price goes up tomorrow. None of this nonsense that people do all the time. It's a very authentic way of selling. It's a slower way of selling, but it's authentic and it creates business.
Yeah. I love that, because even within that wonderful example, you threw another bomb in there, right? Another sales bomb. And I want to go back to just, and we won't hover it as a question, but just so people don't miss it. You said, you asked somebody, why did they choose you? Why did they choose you? Now that, from a sales perspective, is an absolutely killer piece of feedback that should feed in to your sales plan, should feed into your sales strategy. Because if it works and somebody valued it, repeat it. Do it again, because it worked. So often I find business owners move on too quickly to the next thing and don't ask, why did you choose me? What was it I specifically did that worked for you, that made you select me? And then you can repeat that and build that into your marketing and make sure that you're talking to more of your ideal clients. So I think people that when they watch this are going to have to watch it back again because I think you're throwing so many things in here that folks
Thank
just
you.
need to keep going back and catching those. Thinking about just giving people, on top of all those wonderful nuggets that you give, I'm thinking about sales and marketing specifically. What would be your advice here today in a pandemic world where things are different? We don't know what the next weeks and months are going to look like with absolute clarity. As an expert sales trainer and coach, what would be your key advice to those business owners, sellers, and leaders of sales teams that are watching this episode, Niraj?
You've really got to understand sales, and most people don't get sales. And I always say to people, if you want to become better at sales, what are you doing about it? That's one of the first questions I ask. So people never call me when times are good. It's quite rare people call me and say, we're doing brilliant, can you help us? People tend to call me when they're struggling, or if they want to do that bit better. And I always ask them, what are you doing to learn more sales? And it's often met with shocking silence, or they'll say something like, well, I told my team to watch YouTube videos. And that always surprises me. Because here's the thing. So my father is a GP. He spent 5 years working as a doctor and 2 years as a GP. My brother's a tennis coach. He spent years training to be a tennis coach, learning about sports science. My mother's a physiotherapist. She spent years learning to be a physiotherapist. Most salespeople are given 1 day of training, sometimes a week in bigger companies, but it's not enough. You cannot be trained for a week and then go into the real world and sell. And that's the big problem people have. They're not constantly learning. And whenever I train on a one-to-one basis or on a group level, I'm well aware of the fact that 50% of what you learn, Steve, you forget the next day. 95% of what you learn, you forget in a week. That's pretty shocking. So I do 2 things to make sure it doesn't happen. The first thing I say is, okay, what are your takeaways? What are you going to put into action here? Because that's absolutely vital. You have to have takeaways to put into action, and you have to have a deadline for all those takeaways. So important. And the second thing I often do is I'll do a follow-up call a week later, often free of charge, to say, okay, how are you getting on? What success are you having? And are you having any challenges? So when you keep people accountable in sales, they do so much better. Now, in an office environment, if you're a manager or a boss, you should be every Monday morning having one-to-ones with your staff and asking them, how was your week last week? What progress did you make? What success did you have? What did you struggle with? And every single week you should be doing this with your staff so you can see how they're getting better, and you keep encouraging that. And if they're struggling, you need to address that very quickly. What a lot of people do is they have annual appraisals and they find problems, but 12 months is too late, and quarterly reviews is too late. Every Monday, I introduce this to people I work with, and now sales directors are having one-to-ones with their teams, and even business owners in small businesses have one-to-ones with the office manager or the assistant on a Monday, just for half an hour. And they're amazed at how much they can achieve, but also how much it brings up about their feelings about the company as well. So it's so important. And of course, last thing is learn about sales. We're quite lucky. You got books, you have podcasts, you have videos, you have sales events, sales content. There's so many ways you can be learning. And this is now my 25th year in sales. I still read books every day for half an hour, no matter what. I still listen to podcasts for half an hour a day, no matter what. And I still go to conferences 4 times a year, partly to network and see old friends, but also to learn something new and to just pick up on something I may have forgotten. So all those things are so important.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there's so much in there. I mean, I love that idea of the Monday, how are you doing conversation? How can I help you conversation? And again, even in a small business environment, that's something you can do with yourself, right? Now, you might look like you're slightly mad if you're asking yourself those questions out loud, but there's still very good questions to ask yourself, right? Every Monday morning, a bit like your Nicola conversation about your marketing, but the conversation with yourself about, am I going down the right path? What do I need to do? What have I learned? What can I improve? What help do I need? Who do I know in my network that could add some value here, that could help me? Because people want to help, to your point. And resources are out there in abundance. So I think there's some really key things that you talk about. And particularly when we think about the Sales Mindset Coach primary audience in the Facebook group are smaller business owners, where they're making things, they're distributing things, they're manufacturing things. The selling part is a relatively small part of their day, unlike a dedicated team. So your advice about half an hour every day, that's achievable, isn't it?
100%. I see a lot of business owners listening to Audible because they're very busy, but they tend to listen to business books. And that's really important. If you're a business owner, it's important to do that. But what I see, I don't see any of them reading sales books, and that really surprises me. And one thing you mentioned, I'm just going to find this here. There you go. Let's see if I can get this. So review 2020 so far. Last night, 2nd of May, when was that? Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah.
I spent 2 hours, and on the left-hand page, what I'm proud of in 2020 so far. What have I achieved? The charity work I'm doing more charity work than ever. I'm winning new clients. I'm helping so many people. I've got stronger friendships, but also, what do I need to improve? And that's absolutely vital. So I need to stop eating so much sugar and having sugar cravings now. There are certain clients, there was 2 very good clients I lost this year. And that was my fault. The first client is an old friend of mine, and she really tried, she wanted a 50% discount, which really got me angry. And we started negotiating by email. You never negotiate by email. And that was a big mistake I made. That was a big client I lost because of my own silliness. So don't negotiate by email. And the second thing is, a client, Daniel Disney, who we both know, recommended me to somebody. And I met them. And they told me they loved me. They took me out for lunch. It was brilliant. And we got on so well. I sent them a thank you card afterwards. But in the proposal, I rushed the deal because I kind of figured I had it, and they chose somebody else. So again, it's really important to review your work. Every week I do this for 1 hour at the weekend. What went well this week? How can I improve next week? What can I do better? Because now I've made these notes, it's like, okay, I won't make that mistake again. And if you're a business owner and it's just you have to keep learning about sales, but also you have to analyze yourself every week, and you have to see what you're doing well and keep doing that, but also what did I do wrong and what can I improve on? This is all personal development, and it's absolutely vital.
That's wonderful. And always important, but we've probably got that little bit more time right now. So no excuses about being a bit too busy, because we probably all have a little bit more time to allocate to these important things. Well, Niraj, I mean, we have covered so much. I mean, we have touched on your amazing career. We've touched upon some of those enormous companies that you've contributed to the success of, but we've really dug down into sales and marketing, personal development, adding value, pick up the phone. I love that, just the simplicity of some of this. And then this piece about reflection and review. So we've really covered, and there'll be other things I've missed. We've covered so much, and I thank you. And I know everybody watching this will thank you as well. Please, there are 2 books out there, and I see them on the back of the shelf. Everybody Works in Sales, and the new one, Sales for Business Owners, Easy Guide for Sales and Business Owners. Don't miss the opportunity to get those books. Niraj, just sign off and tell everybody where they can find you, and whatever, and lift them up, show them the covers, and
Everybody Works in Sales. That spent 21 weeks in the Amazon Top 100. That did so well because it's storytelling. It's my life story. Because people remember stories. A very important sales tip here. Another sales nugget. People remember stories 10 times more than facts and figures. Yeah. So rather than just writing a book on sales, I wrote a book that told my life story, and that's why people connected with it so well. This book is more of a reference guide for business owners. So if you want to learn more about sales and you're a business owner, this will help you. And this sits on the shelf because I haven't read your book for several months. I just wanted to read a few chapters last night just before we met today. I thought it was very, very important I did that.
You're a good man. You're a good man. thank you ever so much. So I'll sign off from the TV show now. Thanks for watching. Remember, Niraj, we didn't tell people where they can find you. I mean, clearly LinkedIn is a go-to place.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best place. I don't think there's many Niraj Kapurs. I haven't really Googled myself, but I don't think there's many there. Or everybodyworksinsales.com are the two best places to reach me.
Fantastic. Everybody, thank you for tuning in to Sales Talk, the TV show that talks about all things sales. I'll see you again very, very soon.